Hello, and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Today we look at a County Lines drugs gang who were jailed after police bugged the car and listened to their plans to expand into Canterbury, Southend and the north of England. Detectives who were working the case helped smash an elaborate drugs conspiracy in Medway after planting a bug in one of the boss's Mercedes cars. As the leaders plotted their plans to expand into Canterbury, Southend and the north of England, the police were listening in. The bosses of the gang and lifelong friends, Michael Odidina and Kazine Akin Falarin, both received a sentence of 9 years and 8 months, along with Mr. Akin Falarin and Mr. Adina. The people who used to work for the gang, known as runners, were also sentenced. Ramel Fregis of Peckham was jailed for 43 months. Andrew Huntley of Hopedale Road, Greenwich, was jailed for 8 years and a month. Francis Sonny Akon from Surrey was jailed for 27 months. Mark Downs from Cleethorpes was jailed for 37 months. Ater Ewi Homer from Lewisham was jailed for 18 months but was suspended for 2 years and along with 200 hours of unpaid work. And Peter Simmons from the Grimsby area was jailed for 33 months. The judge also ruled that the time that some of the defendants had spent on tag awaiting sentencing will be taken off their sentences. Detectives believed the gang had made up to £500,000 from Class A drug sales, although the charges that were brought before the court only involved deals which netted them an estimated £150,000 between December of 2016 and October of 2018. Judge Philip Statman, presiding over the case, told the defendants, "The supply of Class A drugs undermines communities. This was an extensive County Lines drugs operation, with its tentacles stretching into other areas." Judge Statman told Mr. Akin Falarin that he was a highly intelligent man who had used all the intelligence at his disposal in a criminal enterprise, bringing misery and degradation to others. "But I accept that you have since turned your life around." Judge Statman also added to Mr. Adina, "You became a father 5 days ago, and you have also worked since your arrest to help others stay away from drugs." The drugs network, known as TJ, used to hire cars and frequently change phones to avoid detection by police, and had at least 2 safe houses where they would hide the drugs and cash. But the leaders of the gang were unaware that undercover cops had stashed a device in one of their vehicles and were now listening to their secret conversations. The prosecutor, Martin Yale, told the court how the bosses, Mr. Akin Falarin and Mr. Adina, were at the top of the hierarchy in this conspiracy. Mr. Yale added, "Mr. Akin Falarin and Mr. Adina held the main drugs lines, and the other defendants worked at their instigation and direction. The Medway/Kent arm of this drugs network operated under a name known as TJ. The Grimsby arm operated under the name of Alpo. It is a prominent feature in this case that those who were selling drugs at a street level used hire cars to drive around the locality. These cars were paid for by the drugs network. In particular, there is clear evidence of Mr. Akin Falarin arranging for payments of hire cars for others to use. The Crown says that this was in an effort to reduce the risk of detection of those hire cars. The Crown prosecution says that this was an effort to reduce the risk of detection by police by using hire cars which were changed regularly. The cars would be hired for only a week or so, sometimes the lease being slightly extended, and then the hire car would be returned and another would be leased immediately." Mr. Yale added, "Mr. Aware Homer travelled in the hire car to various locations in Medway, including to individuals' home addresses, supplying Class A drugs. Some of the houses that Mr. Aware Homer travelled to were known drug users, and the detectives discovered that most of the people at these houses received the bulk text messages which were sent out from the County Lines phone. One of those to whom he dealt, Mr. Suleiman, was later stopped by the police and found to be in possession of 2 wraps of heroin and 1 wrap of crack cocaine. The court heard how Mr. Suleiman's telephone was examined and the text from the TJ line were found on the phone advertising dark for sale, which is another name for heroin. The prosecutor, Mr. Yate, also said that the gangs were targeting vulnerable people in the Medway towns and used their homes to store drugs. Mr. Akin Folarin enjoyed a holiday in Morocco, but after landing in Gatwick, immediately continued his drugs operation. No more than a month after he returned from his holiday, the police raided the safe houses, and during the search, officers found a carrier bag containing drugs paraphernalia, with names and telephone numbers written down within the bag. Mr. Yale added, one of the numbers had TJ written next to it. It is very clear that there was a degree of sophistication with the drugs enterprise that Mr. Akin Folarin and Mr. Adina were running, and they were ably assisted by Mr. Huntley. It was effectively being ran as a business, with a hierarchy and employees, and as with any business, there came a time when they decided to expand into other geographical areas. After the raid on the safe houses, the police installed a listening device in Mr. Akin Folarin's Mercedes and heard how he and Mr. Odina and others were supplying Class A drugs. The Crown Prosecution Service decided to drop the charges against one of the women who had lived in one of the safe houses, ruling that she was a highly vulnerable drug addict who had been exploited. After the hearing, the judge commended Detective Constable Dean Sycamore for his dedication and said that the people of Kent can now be assured that the streets were now a little safer. Detective Constable Sycamore said, "This was an organised criminal network which distributed the supply of crack cocaine and heroin across England, targeting vulnerable drug users in order to make significant financial gains. Through our investigation, we estimate that hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of drugs were sold as part of this criminal network. Drugs not only ruin lives of those using, but affects their families and adversely affects the communities that suffer, which were associated with crime." What are your opinions on the drugs gang? Do you believe the sentencing were too harsh or not harsh enough? Also, what are your opinions on the leaders of the gang working to help others stop using drugs whilst they were awaiting sentencing? Please let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like and share, and if you're new to the channel and you enjoy Street Crime UK content, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and press the bell so you can join us on the next video. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.